So first of all, okay. So today we will be dealing with dried milk particle properties. Okay. You can do one thing. You can mute
Okay,
the
ma'am.
audio, and if you have any queries, unmute it and then speak about it. After every slide, I will ask whether you have any queries or not. Okay, so that there is no
Okay,
background
ma'am.
disturbances. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So we have studied dried milk particles, basically of two types. One is the whole milk powder, one is the skim milk powder. And these powders are again prepared by different techniques. Basically, it's a drum dryer or roller drying technique, and another is the spray drying technique. Okay. So now we will discuss about the structure of these dried milk particles. Just a minute, I need to move this. Move it a bit down so that you can see. So is this structure clear? The skim milk particle and the whole milk particle. Can you see it properly now? Nitish, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You can see the particles, okay. So
Yes, ma'am.
there are two parts of a dried milk powder particle. One is the primary structure, another is the secondary structure, okay. So just a minute. Now here you can see, as you can see, that this there is an air cell. This is the air cell in the skim milk powder. Can you see it? And you see a very thin line here. This is also the air cell. So all those materials which are present inside this air cell, this is the primary structure. Okay. Now this primary structure has milk solids which are
Okay,
dispersed
ma'am.
in moisture and air. Even you can see here, because it's whole milk powder, it is more dense.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, because it's from whole milk. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so this is the primary structure having milk solids dispersed in moisture and air. Then we have a film of air, and whatever is present over and above this film of layer, that is the secondary part, secondary structure. Clear? The primary structure, what is the secondary structure?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, this primary and secondary structure has lactose, protein, fat, and moisture in it, okay, which are present in different states. Okay, so we discuss these one by one. So first, we discuss the state of lactose. Now, lactose is present as an amorphous substance. What is an amorphous substance? Which is present in powder form. One is crystalline substance, one is amorphous substance. So, lactose is present as amorphous substance. And this lactose is hygroscopic in nature. So, as soon as relative humidity of the environment goes above 50%, lactose starts absorbing moisture from the environment, which leads into a very common defect, which is caking. You have heard about this. You must have seen that dried milk powder, when kept in container in open air, it cakes up, it solidifies. So that is due to the hygroscopic nature of the lactose present in the dried milk product. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So what happens is that this that moisture percentage of 7% is critical for its caking or absorption of moisture. So we try to maintain this temperature, this relative humidity less than 5%. Okay. So in skimmed milk powder, we keep it at the level of 2 to 3%, whereas in whole milk powder, for skim milk powder, we keep it at for 3 to 4%, and for whole milk powder, we keep it at 2 to 3%. Okay. Now, why do we keep it 2 to 3% in case of whole milk powder and 3 to 4% case of skim milk powder? Give me a reason. Why do we do it?
Ma'am, it is due to the a percentage of lactose present in the milk.
So, percentage of lactose doesn't vary much in case of skim milk and whole milk. But what is more important is
Yes, ma'am.
the fat content. Now, if there is more caking,
Okay, ma'am.
then there are chances of milk oxidation. Now, since the fat content
Hmm.
of whole milk is more, hence the heat of moisture content less, so that there is reduced chances of oxidation at whole milk.
Hmm.
Another, then there is a state of protein. The protein in milk is present in the form of serum proteins. Now, when we dry milk powder, heating is there. As a result, what happens? That there is an irreversible denaturation of the protein present in milk, milk powder. Okay. So the milk powder contains proteins which are denatured. Hence, there is sometimes a problem with dehydration of the milk powder. This denaturation is irreversible. So the state of protein is clear. Any concerns regarding state of protein?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now state of fat. Now fat is mostly of two types. One is the fat which is covered by a thin layer of protein like a missile, and the second one is free fat. This free fat is de-emulsified fat. Okay. So in dried milks, fat either exists as globules surrounded by membrane of proteinous nature or as free fat. The free fat is the de-emulsified fat. Okay.
Okay,
Now,
ma'am.
the greasiness of a particular product depends upon this free fat. Okay. Because when reconstituted, when this is added to hot water or normal water, the dried milk powder is reconstituted to milk. What happens? Because of this very free fat, we sometimes observe a thin layer of fat over the reconstituted milk. You must have observed that whenever we mix dried milk powder in water, hot water, there is a thin layer of fat which forms over that milk. Have you observed that?
Yes, sir.
That is
Yes, ma'am.
the free, okay, de-emulsified fat, which is present inside the milk powder. Okay, now
Okay, ma'am.
depending upon the process used, this that is whether we are using drum drying technique or spray drying technique, the amount of de-emulsified fat or free fat. So when we dry the product with drum drying technique, the whole milk powder has almost 85 to 95% of free fat. Okay, which reduces when we change the technique to spray dried method. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
but if there are if we do not store the spray dried milk powder in proper method or in proper ways, then what happens? The content of free fat particles increases, which leads to
Okay, ma'am.
degenerative changes such as oxidation and rancidity. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So, this high percentage of free fat occurs due to the rupture of globule membranes by the hot drum. So what we talked about that when we dry this product by drum drying technique, the free fat content is more as compared to spray drying technique. We discussed this just a while ago. Now, why does this happen?
Hmm.
Because what happens is that the globules containing fat, they rupture while milk is poured on the hot drum. And while it is scraped out using a knife, these globules, they form big fat particles, okay, which
Hmm.
is as free fat particles. Clear?
Okay, ma'am.
So the amount of free fat needs to be controlled because these free fat are ready for oxidation, and oxidation causes rancidity. As a result, the shelf life of the product produced is low. So we have to take a note that the amount of free fat should be low. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
So lactose is clear, state of protein is clear, and state of fat is clear. Any confusion in these 3 points?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now comes the moisture content. Now, as a thumb rule, we have to remember that the moisture content of dried milk should always be less than 5%. Okay. Now, in case of whole milk
Okay.
powder, it should be 2 to 3%, and in case of skim milk powder, it should be 3 to 4%. Okay. Why so? I have discussed with you.
Okay, ma'am.
Any confusion in that point?
Hmm.
Any confusion?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now we go to the next slide.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, density is basically mass upon volume. We all know that, okay? And why density is taken into consideration? Because during the process of producing whole milk powder, there are a few factors which play a very important role uh, for during its production. So that's why density is a very important aspect. For instance, the packaging cost. If the density is high, then the volume will be less and mass will be more. So the packaging cost will reduce. If the density is less, then the volume will be more. So what will happen? That more amount of packaging material will be required. So the packaging cost will automatically go up. Clear? This point, that how density regulates packaging cost, is this clear or should I repeat?
It's clear, ma'am.
Clear, okay. Then comes that recovery of milk particles. Okay, so if the density of the milk particle is high, then what happens is that particle tends to bind with each other. There is the powdered form has a good flow. It has a good flowability. The point of flowability will be discussed later on as well. So if the density is high, then there is a uniform flow of the product. Because air trap is less. When density is high, air trap is automatically less. So the product flows in a uniform way. Hence, the recovery of the product is better. And third, milk dust nuisance. There is a term called milk dust nuisance. What is milk dust nuisance? It is the product which is lost while production of milk particle. What happens is that when dry milk is produced, some particles are too small in size. Okay? Those particles, they tend to flow with the air. Okay? So what happens is,
Okay, ma'am.
most such particles, due to very low density, we are not able to capture them, which create, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, which create milk dust nuisance. What happens is that those particles which are very small in size, they have very low density, and these particles, when trying to be collected, they disperse in the air, which causes, which first of all causes loss of material produced, as well as may lead to some kind of allergic reactions. Okay. So here density is measured in three parts. One is bulk or apparent density, one is particle density, and one is true density. So as the name suggests, bulk or apparent density. Now bulk density is also of two types. One is the packed product density and one is the loose product density. Which one will be higher, the packed product or the loose product? Tell me.
Ma'am, the loose one.
That will have higher density.
But, ma'am, can you repeat the question, ma'am?
Which I told you that bulk density is of two types. One is packed product density,
Hmm.
other is loose product density.
Hmm.
So which will be higher, the packed product density or the loose product density?
Pack product, ma'am.
Okay. Why? Why so? Why do you
Ma'am,
think?
their volume is very less, ma'am.
Why
Actually,
is the
ma'am,
volume reduced?
volume is to eliminate the cost of packaging, ma'am.
No, volume of that product is reduced because the air inside the product is sucked out or is taken out. As a result, what happens? If air is incorporated, obviously density will reduce. You are clear with this? Okay. So when we pack
Yes,
the
sir.
product, what happens is the air which is inside that product, it escapes out. As a result, the bulk density increases. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, now tell me, bulk density is nothing but mass of the product divided by volume of the product. Okay, and here we are talking about the bulk, the whole product as a whole. As you can see, particle density talks about the particle only. Okay, but here we are talking about bulk density, the whole product density. So tell me, which will have higher density, whole milk powder or skim milk powder? Think about it. Which will have more density, the whole milk powder or skim milk powder?
Skim milk powder, ma'am.
Why?
Ma'am, the reason will be the same, ma'am. The volume is less in the case of skim milk.
The only difference between whole milk powder and skim milk powder is that the fat
Fat,
percentage of whole milk powder is
fat
more
percentage.
than skim milk powder. Okay, and
Yes,
fat
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
reduces the density. Hence, skim milk powder will have higher density and whole milk powder will have lower density. Okay, is this clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So, if we talk about techniques, the technique of producing uh, milk powder, then the particle produced by spray drying technique will have the highest density. Then comes the powder produced by drum drying technique, and the product produced by foam drying technique will have the least bulk density. Okay, clear? Spray dried product will have the highest density, then will come the drum dried product, and then will come the foam spray drying product, dried product. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And within the spray dried technique, the centrifugal spray dried technique used milk product. The milk powder formed by centrifugal spray dried technique will have a higher density as compared to pressure spray drying technique. Okay. I told you the spray drying technique are of two types, centrifugal and pressure nozzle. So the centrifugal,
Yes, ma'am.
the milk powder produced by centrifugal technique will have higher bulk density than the milk powder produced by pressure spray dried technique. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any confusion in this bulk or apparent density?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now comes the particle density. Okay. So as the name suggests, it talks about the particle only. Okay. So it is chiefly influenced by the air trapped in it, because particle itself will not have very much variation. So it depends upon the air entrapped in it. The air entrapped between the primary and secondary particles layers. Clear? So
Yes, ma'am.
if that air is more, then density will be less. And if that film is thinner, then the density will be more. Clear? That is the particle
Yes,
density.
ma'am.
Now, centrifugal spray dried milks contain more entrapped air than pressure spray technique products. Okay, hence they will have a lower particle density. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then comes true density. What is true density? Density of the product after all the air has been sucked out. So air has no role to play in the density of the product in case of true density. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So true density of skim milk powder is 1.44 to 1.48, whereas that of whole milk powder is 1.26 to 1.32 grams per milliliter. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
No confusion till this slide?
No, ma'am.
So now I have listed you a few products and their densities, okay? Like uncompressed drum dried product powder is 0.3 to 0.5 gram per milliliter. Uncompressed pressure spray product is 0.5 to 0.6 gram per milliliter. As I told you, spray dried powders have more density than drum dried powders. Clear? Then there is compressed drum and spray dried product. Okay, they have 1.1 to 1.2 gram per milliliter as a density. Air-free whole milk powder. So air-free whole milk powder is the true density of whole milk powder. It varies from 1.31 to 1.32, and air-free skim milk powder, which is the true density of skim milk powder, that is around 1.44. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then comes flowability. Now, what do you understand by flowability? It comes from the term which is flow. So flowability is how smoothly a product runs within a given system. Like you have a system and you have to see how smoothly that powder flows within the system. That depends upon flowability. Okay. Now flowability depends upon certain factors such as agglomeration, spherical shape, high particle density, smooth surface, and dryness. So we'll take each and every point separately. Agglomeration. You remember in the first lecture I talked about agglomeration. What is agglomeration? You remember agglomeration?
No, ma'am.
We have one milk particle, then again milk is sprayed on that particle and dried. As a result, what happens? Another layer of milk, dried milk is produced, is formed on it, and that
Yes, ma'am.
and the size of that milk particle increases. Okay, this is agglomeration.
Okay.
Clear? Now, what will
Yes, ma'am.
happen if agglomeration happens? If the particle size increases, if an extra layer is formed, then particle size increases as well as
Yes, ma'am.
particle weight increases. As a result, the density milk dust nuisance, which we talked about in the earlier slide, remember? Milk
Yes,
dust,
ma'am.
that is reduced because particle weight is reduced. So those small particles which used to escape due to low density, that amount reduces. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then comes spherical shape. What happens in spherical shape is that if the shape is spherical, then the flowability of the product is more because it will not stick on any surface, it will glide down smoothly. Okay? Like if you see a ball moves more easily on a surface than a cube or any other structure. Okay? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
High particle density. Now, if the particle density is more, what happens is that air entrap is less, all the particles will stick to each other, and hence making the flow of the product within that particular system easier. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any confusion in high particle density?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then comes smooth surface. Now, if the surface of the particle is smooth, then what will happen? It will easily glide down the system. It will not get caught up anywhere. Okay, it will not get caught up anywhere within the system. It will smooth down the system easily. Okay, and the last factor is dryness. Now, as we had discussed earlier, that due to lactose content, which is a major content in dried milk powders, what happens is it is hygroscopic in nature, and as soon as the relative humidity of its surrounding atmosphere crosses 50%, what happens is it starts absorbing water from the outer atmosphere. So we have to maintain a dry environment so that water is not absorbed by the lactose and caking does not take place. Once caking will take place, what will happen? It will stick to the system. Okay, the particles size
Yes, ma'am.
is increasing the bulk density, and what happens is that the particles will not be able to flow smoothly. If there is solidification, then flow will be reduced because solids do not flow. That is of a liquid or a powder state. Then what will happen? It will get stuck at certain places. So we have to maintain dryness. Okay. Now, in order to increase flowability, certain free-flow agents are added to the milk powder, such as calcium silicate and sodium aluminum silicate. You know, the silicate absorbs water. We have silica gels, packets in instruments, in shoe boxes. We have seen those packets. So these
Yes.
silica gels basically silicate absorb the surrounding
Moisture.
atmosphere humidity. So sometimes small amount of silicate at the rate of 1.5 to 1.5% is added to the milk powder so that the flowability is maintained. So calcium silicate is added at the rate of 1.5%, whereas sodium aluminum silicate are added at the rate of 0.5 to 1%. Just a minute, there is someone who's somebody's waiting. Just give me some time.
Okay, ma'am.
Just a minute. I'm not able to open it up. Okay. I think so he's there. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Continue, please.
Sorry, sir, I could not observe because I was with the lecture, so it took me some time to add you up. I'm really sorry for that. Okay.
Okay, no problem. You go ahead.
Okay. So, so is this clear? Flowability?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now we'll go to the next slide. So he has left the mark. No issue. Okay. So other factors. Other factors include milk dustiness. Okay. So as you can see, it is dust. Okay. So what happens in dust is that when particle size is very small, it goes into the air, which forms dust. This is clear. It's a very basic concept. Some milk particles,
Yes, ma'am.
very small in nature, what happens? They're small and light. As a result, they become airborne. They start floating in the air. Those particles are known as milk dust. Okay, now if milk dust is more, then what happens? There are not packaging losses because we are not able to entrap those particles. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now what happens that since these particles are airborne, they become a health hazard. As a result, some breathing problems can be there. People who are allergic to lactose, they get more exposed. Okay. And there
Yes,
are
ma'am.
production losses. These milk dust cannot be entrapped within the box. They form dust nuisance. Okay. Then comes reconstitutability. Now, reconstitutability means how well we can reconstitute milk powder to milk. Now, in ideal situation, what happens is it is said that a powder is reconstitutable if we add water to it and no amount of stirring or movement is required to make it to mix it and make it similar to the original product. So milk powder, an ideal milk powder will be that one to which if we add water, then we need not to stir or agitate it. It will easily get mixed up with water and it will resemble same to the original milk. Okay? So this property of uh, mixing up with water and getting reconstituted to the original product is known as reconstitutability. Now, reconstitutability is based upon the particles, the factors which are present inside the milk powder, which is lactose, fat, and protein. Okay. So, based
Yes, ma'am.
upon these products, we will take into consideration one thing at a time. So, as you can see, point C is solubility. So, what is in solubility? In solubility, we will take up the products which are soluble in nature. So the products which are soluble in nature and present in milk are lactose and salts. So, and undenaturated milk protein. Okay. So lactose, salt, and undenaturated milk proteins are the products for which solubility as a factor will play good role. Okay. Now, more is the solubility index, better is the solubility. You know that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Then comes dispersibility. Okay. So casein in milk, that is in dispersed phase. So dispersibility plays an important role in in case of casein or milk protein. Now, if
Yes,
the heat treatment is high, then what happens? The protein denaturates. As a result, its ability to disperse up also reduces because the product is destroyed. Clear?
yes, sir.
Okay. Then, now, for instance, here the fat plays a very important role. For instance, if the fat particles, the globules break up, make fat droplets. As a result, what happens? Density reduces. Density reduces. Then what will happen? The powder as a whole will not sink inside water. As a result, reconstitution will be difficult. So sinkability is
Yes,
also
sir.
important. Hence, the fat particles should be minimum deemulsified. Okay, it should be present as globule.
Okay.
Okay, and wettability. Wettability is how the water is soaked inside the milk particle or milk powder so that it gets dissolved easily or reconstituted easily. So wettability is played by which particle? Tell me. The hydrogen, which is lactose. So lactose plays an important role in wettability. Okay. Now, because of this wettability, what happens? That you must be noticing that when we put milk powder in water, lumps are produced. So we have to stir it immediately. So this lump formation is due to this wettability tendency. Clear? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Then comes flavor. Now, flavor is dependent on two parts. First is the grade of milk used. Flavor can never be better than the flavor of the original milk produced. Flavor of the milk powder can never be better than the flavor of the milk produced. And second is the technique of drying used. So if we use drum drying technique, there are more chances that a cooked flavor might be developed. Okay. In spray drying technique, pasteurized milk usually retains its pasteurized milk flavor, but when temperature goes high, again a cooked flavor might be there. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
we should always aim to use high grade milk so that the flavor of the dried milk should be clean, rich, sweet, and very pleasant. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So when it comes to reconstitution, the flavor of reconstituted skim milk is more similar to the original product than the flavor of the whole milk, because sometimes fat is not able to disperse inside the reconstituted milk in a proper way as the globules burst up. Clear?
Yes, sir.
And tendency of burnt flavor is greater in drum dried milks than in spray dried milks. Okay? And then the last point is color and appearance. Now, on a standard mode, whole milk powder should be uniformly light yellow for cow milk and creamy white for buffalo milk. But sometimes, due to improper management or due to techniques used, what happens? A brown color is obtained. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll repeat it again because there was a breakage from my side. We have two types of milk powder: whole milk powder and skim milk powder. Okay. For whole milk powder, color of for cow milk should be light yellow, whereas for buffalo milk it should be creamy white. And in case of skim milk powder, the cow milk should be yellow white, and for buffalo milk it should be chalky white. Now, any deviation from this color is too high temperature. What happens is heat, Maillard reaction takes place. As a result, brownish coloration and burnt flavor is developed. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So if
Yes,
you
sir.
use drum drying technique, there are more chances of getting a slightly brownish milk powder. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And the color and appearance changes. Now we'll come towards the keeping quality of milk. Now there are certain factors which regulate the keeping quality of milk. First is composition. Now, as we have talked about the varying amount of fat, composition plays an important role in keeping quality. Any confusion in composition? Because we have talked
No,
we
ma'am.
have discussed each and every particle like fat, lactose, protein, moisture separately in the
Yes,
previous
ma'am.
one. I guess composition is clear. Then
Yes,
comes
ma'am.
quality of milk used in production. So as I had stated earlier, that the milk powder produced can never be of a better quality than the milk used in its production. So we should always aim in using high quality milk for good quality milk powder. Okay. Then the next point is care
Yes,
during
ma'am.
production. Proper amount of hygienic care and other manufacturing details should be taken into consideration while production of the milk powder. For instance, temperature of the drum in drum roller drying technique, or proper concentration of the milk before it is dried. All these small points should be taken into consideration while the product is being produced. Okay, then only we will get a good quality
Yes,
product
ma'am.
which can be kept for a longer time. Okay, then care during handling and storage. We have to handle the product in a way that there is uh, minimum amount of impurities present in it, or there is no spoilage or contamination, and it should be stored. So it should be stored at proper temperature. For instance, if we have lacquered tins, or we have what you say galvanized tins, we store that product, then the temperature should not exceed room temperature. And if we and or we should be keeping the products in cardboard boxes lined with polythene. Okay, so the, uh,
Yes,
these
ma'am.
these products should be maintained at room temperature. They should not be kept in high temperature areas. Otherwise, what will happen? That due to high temperature, fat will split, and reconstitution of the milk will be difficult. Moreover, once the packet is open, it will be more prone to oxidation. So we have to take care during handling and storage of product. Proper packaging and proper storage should be taken into consideration depending upon the packaging technique used. Then manufacturing conditions I told you about, proper hygiene should be maintained so that no contamination is there. Clear? Packaging conditions during packaging as well,
Yes, ma'am.
proper hygiene is to be maintained, and the packaging technique used should be of the manner that it can be that the product can be stored for a desirable period of time. And storage conditions, as I had told you earlier, that depending upon the packaging technique, the storage conditions should be decided upon. Any confusion in these 7 points?
No, ma'am.
Then we'll move to the last slide, second last slide, which are major changes during storage. So the major changes which occurs during storage is fat decomposition and lactose and protein changes. Now, what happens in fat decomposition is the fat present inside the milk powder that oxidizes and creates a rancid taste. Okay. Now, fat decomposition occurs due to these points. Storage temperature is controlled by these points. Storage temperature, presence of copper and iron, acidity, sunlight, preheating, addition of antioxidants, and gas packaging. So in case of storage temperature, higher the storage temperature, higher is the rate of oxidation. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then comes presence of copper and iron. So since copper and iron, they increase the rate of oxidation. Hence, in order to avoid development of oxidized flavor, we have to limit the level of copper to 1.5 ppm and the level of iron to 10 ppm, parts per million. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then is acidity. Higher is the acidity, higher is the rate of oxidation. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Sunlight. Exposure to sunlight will accelerate or aggravate the rate of fat oxidation. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Then comes preheating. Now, preheating of the milk will delay oxidative changes during storage. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Why does this happen? Why does preheating slow down oxidation process? Tell me.
Ma'am, preheating just uh, uh, ma- uh, just melt the fat particles.
No.
Uh,
What happens is that lipase enzyme is present in milk. So when we preheat the milk,
yes, ma'am.
the enzyme stops to act. It denaturates.
It's
As a result, the oxidation of fat, the rate of oxidation of fat reduces.
okay, ma'am.
Okay. Then comes addition of antioxidants. So this is the practical and commercial procedure for increasing the quality, the keeping quality of the product. Okay. Now what happens is
Yes, ma'am.
by reducing the oxygen content to 2% or less, okay, in the head
Yes, ma'am.
space, I'm sorry. So addition of antioxidants, what happens is small amount of antioxidant is added to the milk powder, dried milk powder. Okay. Then comes gas packaging. Okay. Now gas packaging, what happens is that you must have seen that there is a head space in the product. Okay. And within that head space, either air is filled or nitrogen gas is filled. And that head space plays an important role in reducing the rate of fat oxidation. So what we do is that we reduce the oxygen content of that air in head space to less than 2%. Okay. Or we
Yes, ma'am.
add, we create a partial vacuum environment having nitrogen in it. These two steps roughly double the shelf life of the milk powder produced, hence increasing the keeping quality of the milk. Clear?
Okay, ma'am.
Then comes lactose protein changes. Now, lactose protein changes are first staleness, second off color, and third is insolubility. Now, staleness comes due to increased high moisture content and high storage temperature. Staleness means basi jo smell aata hai, that it is stale, it is spoiled.
Yeah.
That is there. Off color. Off color. The principal change in color is browning or discoloration, which is attributed to the Millard's reaction. Okay. Now higher is the moisture
Yes,
content
ma'am.
or the storage temperature, faster is the browning. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And then comes insolubility. This is determined by measuring the solubility index of the powder. And it depends upon the amount of protein denature. So if the amount of protein denature, then what happens is that the suspension, okay, the dispersibility is reduced. Can you hear me? The
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
dispersibility is reduced. As a result, the milk powder does not mix properly with water to form reconstituted milk. Hence, the quality of milk powder is reduced. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Should I repeat it again? Or is it clear?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It is-
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So then there are a few points uh, in which there is, I have mentioned the difference between drum dried and spray dried products. So particle size, as you can see, in drum dried, it varies from 8 to 20 micron, and in spray dried, it varies from 10 to 250 microns. The surface of drum dried product is wrinkled, whereas that of spray dried product is normally smooth. Shape of drum dried product is regular, and spray dried product is irregular. Airflow in drum dried product is normally present, whereas it is absent in case of spray dried products. Then bulk density of drum dried product is 0.3 to 0.5 grams per ml, whereas of spray dried product is 0.5 to 0.6. This higher bulk density is due to absence of air cell. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Flowability. The flowability of spray dried product is higher than drum dried product. Dustiness of spray dried product is slightly higher than drum dried product, and as well as reconstitutability of spray dried product is higher than drum dried product. Okay. Flavor is flavor such as cooked flavor is normally seen in drum dried product and sometimes seen in spray dried product. Okay, if temperature is
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
maintained
ma'am.
properly, then this cooked flavor is not does not develop in spray dried products. And color, so in case of spray dried product, it is light yellow, creamy white in color, depending upon the type of milk. In case of cow milk, it is light yellow in color, whereas in case of buffalo milk, it is creamy white in color. Whereas this color slightly darkens when drum drying technique is used because of Maillard reaction.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, is everything clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any confusion in today's class?
No, ma'am.